Ask the Experts is brought to you by Seaman Law Offices, the keystone to your family's legacy.
Welcome to Ask the Expert, Doreen. It's so glad to see you again today.
Thank you, Krista. It's great to be here today. And today I'd like to talk about an important case that concerns one of our clients who's a widow that I'd like to tell you about. We'll call her Mrs. White. Unfortunately, her husband passed away 9 months ago, quite unexpectedly.
Okay, well, that's terrible.
Yes, it is. And from an estate planning perspective, it gets worse. Mr. White didn't have a will.
Okay, so he died intestate, which means without having a will.
Yes, and Mrs. White is his second wife with whom he had 2 kids, but he also had 2 daughters from a previous marriage. So Mr. and Mrs. White owned their home and a lake house jointly, but many of their other assets, such as his money market account, boat, 2 ATVs, and a life insurance policy, were only in his name.
Okay, so Mrs. White will need to go through probate to get those assets.
Yes, so first she had to be appointed as administrator of his estate because there was no will to follow, and so this made the process more expensive, time-consuming, and stressful than usual.
Right, so what is the next step?
Well, Mr. White's oldest daughter is refusing to sign the beneficiary paperwork and is causing her stepmom quite a bit of difficulty in dealing with the estate. So now it's been almost a year and they're not even close to closing the estate.
Okay, so meanwhile, Mrs. White is limited in what she can do with the assets that aren't even in her name.
Exactly. The thing is, Mr. White never expected this to happen because they all got along so well when he was living, but we see this quite frequently. Everything seems to change after a person passes away.
Okay, so Mrs. White's case really drives home the need to actually create a will.
It's important to be prepared so your family isn't left wondering or arguing about what your wishes would have been.
So if you don't have a will or an estate plan, your first consultation with Seaman Law Offices is actually free. You can call 304-554-2900 or visit SeamanLawOffices.com. Thank you for joining us, Doreen.
Thank you, Krista.
Ask the Experts has been brought to you by Seaman Law Offices, the keystone to your family's legacy.